Sammy Wilson.
I just want to ask some questions around the exit bill which has been presented or has been mooted. The white paper never mentioned any thing about an exit bill. It did mention about keeping good relations with the EU, etc. But there was no mention at all of any of the costs of leaving the EU. Was that an oversight, or is that an indication that the government does not believe that it has any obligation to make payments?
It's sort of neither, really, Mr. Wilson. The first truth is this bill has not been presented, and I've not seen any rationale behind it. I've seen this is surmised rationale, but we haven't actually seen anything. The other thing I'll just remind people is we are at the beginning of a negotiation. Positions will be taken in all of this, but our stance is pretty straightforward. We are a law-abiding nation. We believe in international systems of rules. We obey them, and we have rights and obligations, and we'll insist on one and meet the other. So that's the first thing to say. I would advise, actually, I don't necessarily agree with everything it said, but I think the House of Lords report on this was interesting, because it did lay out sort of the sort of competing arguments quite well, and I think from the committee's point of view, it's a sort of it's a very good starter, if you like, in this exercise. But we don't recognise the numbers you're talking about.
There seems to be one is that it's totally a legal obligation, and the other end is put out by one of the former legal advisors to the EU that it'd be like a negotiation for buying a rug in a Moroccan market, or it's maybe somewhere in between. Has the government made any assessment at all? I wouldn't want you to give a figure, but has the government made any assessment of what issues may well be a legal obligation which we can't escape, and what part will be down to political haggling?
Only in my head. There's ongoing work on all of the legal aspects, but the reason I point you to the House of Lords report is it does make clear that there's an interaction between these two things. And at the end of the day, anybody who's been a minister in the Council of Ministers knows that the European Union is about getting answers to solve the problems. And so it'll be a sort of problem-solving stroke, negotiated stroke, legal-based outcome. And that's a woolly answer, but I suspect it'll be a exercise, at least in part of it.
It may be a woolly exercise, but it's been made...
The outcome won't be woolly.
It's been made clear that it is going to be, at least certainly by some of the European negotiators, that it's going to be top of the list when it comes to the issues which need to be dealt with. And I suppose, understandably, given the...
It's one of the top 3 or 4.
Given the hole which there will be in the EU budget when the UK leaves the EU. Some people have suggested to the committee that this could be one of the issues which brings negotiations or puts them into the mud very, very quickly and stops the negotiating process happening. Have you, in your visits around the various countries you've visited so far, had any indication from member states as to how they view this? And secondly, how would the government intend to deal with negotiations getting bogged down on this issue very quickly?
Well, I'm not going to answer the last one, Mr. Wilson, because I'm not going to tell you what the negotiating tactics will be for dealing with any stop-goes in the negotiations. In terms of responses to me going around, I think people understand, and this comes right back down to our issue of parallel versus sequential negotiation, and I think every country understands that every country I've talked to understands that. Most of them are very sympathetic to our view. There's a real sort of systemic issue here, or slight sort of schizophrenia. They all understand the position. Most of them, nearly all of them, are sympathetic. But of course, there will be a sort of, we don't want to break the solidarity of the 27 issue, you know. And I've been, because This is not negotiations, this is prior talks. I've not tried to break that. I've not tried to sort of impact on that. So I think what I would say to you is, let's look at what the first set of guidelines the council hands down to the commission are, and see how they respond to that, and then you can make a better judgment. But at the moment, I'm loath to be drawn any further on how we're going to deal with it, except to make plain we think it should be a parallel negotiation, that we don't recognise the numbers being talked about, and we will meet our obligations when we are convinced of what they are.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.